HRLA is obviously pushing back quite hard, and you're involved with that. The Combating Anti-Semitism, Hate and Extremism Bill 2026. Now that's concerning a lot of people, obviously in Australia, people that I'm in contact with. As an independent podcaster, there's some concerns around censorship. There's some small political parties that could be caught up in a lot of this if they're going against the grain. What are some of the real concerns that South Australians or Australians should have in regards to this bill, this legislation?
So the bill that passed did two things in broad terms. It increased penalties for existing Commonwealth laws prohibiting the encouragement of violence, etc., on the ground of inter alia ethnic origin, and made an aggravated offence if that was done by a minister of religion. So that was one part of it. The second part of it was to give the minister power on the recommendation of the head of ASIO. If ASIO thought the head of ASIO thought there was a risk that a particular group was likely to commit or encourage violence against another group on the basis of race or ethnic origin, to give the minister power to proscribe or ban that group. And there are then offences flowing if people associate with that group, etc. So they're the two broad areas of the bill, or the law now, because it passed Parliament. So in terms of the second, the real concern is that there's no judicial oversight. And it's, in my view, it's quite, it may be, these things are always difficult to say, but it's quite open to a challenge under the Constitution, that it's unconstitutional because it removes, in effect allows the minister to impose a penalty quite apart from the involvement of any courts. And that could mean that the legislation is challenged. And some of the groups that are subject to the legislation, like the group Hizb al-Tahrir, has indicated in the press that they'll bring a challenge. So that's one big concern, that the executive, so we have three parts to our government: the executive, which enforces the laws, the legislature, which passes the laws, and the judiciary, which is independent of the other two, which decides if the laws have been broken or not. This gives the executive power to impose, in effect, penalties on citizens or groups of citizens without recourse to the courts. And in my view, that's a bad precedent. The first set of amendments, they're increasing the penalties, and the real new part of it is creating an aggravated offence if it's done by a minister of religion, etc. And in the light of Bondi, you can see the justification for it, save and except that it's always dangerous for governments to start passing legislation directly at religious faiths. That might seem an appropriate response given the outrage of Bondi, but we have to start thinking a bit wider than that. And the third level to that is this, that in my view, the sort of broad-based hate speech laws aren't really good legislation. We've got offensive conduct legislation, and I think I'm right in this. It used to be the case that offensive behaviour was illegal in New South Wales, but then they restricted it to conduct around schools and churches, etc. Now, if that hadn't happened, and if the police had the will, events like that took place on the Sydney Opera House after October 7, chants of "Where's the Jews?", "Gas the Jews", etc., could well be offensive behaviour. And really, it's the onus has always been on the authorities to act to pick up that small stuff, or it wasn't small, but to nip this escalating hate at the inception. And the real failure, which led to October 7, wasn't a failure of legislation. It was a failure of the authorities to act on the basis of using the tools that they did. They tried to sort of let things go, nothing to see here, and it didn't work. So it's the will to implement what we have that's important, not passing dramatic new laws which may have unintended effects down the line. So that's a long answer to.
Yeah, it's a very slippery slope, because obviously a lot of Christians are always also concerned, and I know we know Cooley Smith and Bernard Gaynor and people like that. If it's the slippery slope of how far this bill can eventually go at a federal level. I know the states have anti-discrimination processes and all that, but it's about the slippery slope of this this legislation and how far it can go. And that's, I think, one of the big concerns for many observers, from this.
Yeah. So at the moment, it's restricted in that second part of the bill to encouragement of violence, etc., on gender and race. But who knows where that'll end up.